leaves out a few things. Just that short segment about the Good Shepherd kind of makes it difficult to understand the full context of the story, so I think it's important to bring in what comes before and after. So I'm going to read verses 1 through 10 of John 10. Very truly, I tell you, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate climbs in by another way, is a thief and a bandit. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will not follow a stranger, but they will run from him because they do not know the voice of strangers. Jesus used this figure of speech with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. So again Jesus said to them, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and bandits, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters by me will be saved and will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. And then verses 19 to 21 say this. Again, the Jews were divided because of these words. Many of them were saying, he has a demon and is out of his mind. Why listen to him? Others were saying, these are not the words of one who has a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind? So, I've got a vision. We are called to spread the gospel to the ends of the earth in any way possible, by any means necessary. And I think if we're going to do that, we have to be able to get there, right? It's kind of hard if we're going to have to walk to Zimbabwe or take a boat to New Zealand or whatever the case may be. So we need the fastest way possible to get there and spread the gospel. So I took it upon myself to do a little shopping, just a little window shopping, if you will, price a few things out. And it appears that we can get a pretty decent jet for about $65 million. Now, come on. I won't take it. I know we made this happen. I mean, it's times some thousands, but we can do this. After all, since my family and I will be traveling, you do want us to be safe, right? You want us to have Wi-Fi and satellite TV and everything. I mean, you don't want us riding some rickety old World War II bomber that was restored. No? Not feeling it? Neither am I when I heard that story on CNN that Pastor Creflo Dollar was trying to get $65 million out of anybody who could, $300 a pop, and trying to get as much money as he could because, not just because he needed a new plane, but because his old plane was kind of getting old and falling apart and stuff. So the fact that he had a plane in the first place astounds me, but okay, so people saw fit to buy him a plane, and here they are talking about buying another one. Now, understandably, he's received a lot of backlash for this, thank goodness. But when you think about all of these preachers that we've heard about that have gone down in disgrace, Bishop Eddie Long, right? Jimmy Swagger, Jim Baker, all these people who have been caught basically with their hand in the kitty, if that's what you want to call her, in the cookie jar, doing these things for money, telling everybody that if you just give me money, you're giving it to the church, therefore God will bless you, and you too will be prosperous and have a good and healthy life. What a message. I tell you what, if I switched to that tune, I bet we could fill this place pretty quick. But I'm not going to do it. People turn to shepherds for direction, but they're being misled. So many of us have this longing for something that we can't quite articulate. Maybe we call it a place called home or whatever it might be, and we're looking for direction, and so we turn to people for this direction. And a lot of times, unfortunately, we get led astray. We get led to a point where they just come like a thief, and they rob, and they steal. And this is what Jesus warns us, right? But there is one true way to be the good shepherd. You go through the gate. It's one way. It's simple. But see, so many people are wanting to climb over the fences, right? To dig holes and go under them, to snip the barbed wire, so to speak, and to go through. But Jesus says, if you're really a shepherd, you will be known by your sheep. I remember reading once in this National Geographic article about this man in New Zealand. He was a sheep herder, a shepherd. And one of the reporters went down to interview him and to see what he did on a daily basis. And it was nighttime. And the shepherd was telling him this story, that the sheep know my voice and they follow me. And the guy's like, well, okay, I can understand that, but, it's just common sense, right? Like, no, you don't understand. He says, I want you to use your voice and you say really loud to all the sheep to come to you. And so this reporter says, come on, sheep, come on. Nothing. Remember, it's pitch black out, right? You really can't see these sheep anyway, but it's really dark. And the shepherd says, okay, now let me try. And he yells, come to me. And all of a sudden, all these eyes turned in the moonlight, illuminated eyes. Thousands of sets of eyes were shining in the darkness, and he said it was the weirdest, but yet most amazing thing that he'd ever seen. That's when we know that you have a real shepherd, because the sheep will know the shepherd. The sheep will know the voice of the shepherd. But sometimes we get caught up here, right? And we think we've got it figured out. We think we're hearing the right words. We think we've got some solid direction to follow. But when we start to think about it, something doesn't sit well with us. We had a funeral yesterday, a memorial service. We're going to have another one today. And I was thinking about something I wrote in e-blast about the two halves of life. Right? The first half of life, we're kind of immature. It doesn't have to be a pejorative term, but in a sense, we're immature spiritually and in the way we live our lives. We're focusing more on things and obtaining stuff and status and approval from other people. But then in the second half of life, well, no matter how long it takes us to get there, we switch from knowledge to wisdom. We start seeking things that are more spiritual. We start going within instead of seeking without. And we become changed. We become transformed by it. See, belief is important. Belief is important, but belief is right here. Experience happens right here. I was reading about this church planting method, and they were talking about a bounded set versus a centered set. Okay? The bounded set is like building a fence. So imagine all the sheep and you build a big fence around and you keep them all in ranch so they can't go anywhere. Okay? The centered set says you build a well right in the center. And the shepherd stays there. And the sheep don't need a fence because they have to drink. They're going to have to come back to the well at some point. So they all come back of their own accord because they're seeking something. They're seeking nourishment and sustenance. And so they're not being told that you must adhere to this doctrine, the fence, but no, you must come and drink, and you must experience what it is to be fed, to be nourished. And this is what the shepherd does for the sheep. This is exactly what Jesus is talking about right here. But how do you get to this point? How do you find these shepherds? Well, see, they don't have to be people who are learned. We don't need a PhD in theology or necessarily even a seminary degree to be a shepherd. The shepherd is somebody who has gone before and can then lead those who are behind. Somebody who has experienced the second half of life. Somebody who has gone there. Somebody who has dipped into that well and tasted the cool, refreshing waters of the Spirit of God. That person can be a shepherd. You may have noticed at the top of your bulletin there was a quote from John O'Donohue. John O'Donohue was an Irish poet. You may even call him a mystic. He wrote a lot of wonderful, soul-stirring words, but one thing he always said that people needed an anamkara. An anamkara is a soul friend. a buddy of yours, a friend, somebody who has experienced things in life that they can come back and share with you, and that you two can set off on a journey together, both at different times, playing the role of shepherd and sheep, and then switching off when it's your turn to lead. I think we all need a soul friend. We don't have to turn to people who sit up in their ivory towers, up at the pulpit with thousands and thousands of people. Good for them. But that's not what is going to help us to experience God. Because ultimately the experience of God is so much more powerful than the belief. Beliefs are important. Beliefs are critical. But beliefs should lead us to the experience of God and not become a fence and a barrier to that experience. Because then, when we can finally drink from that well and experience the Spirit of God, then we know that we have not only found a shepherd, but we have experienced the essence of being and life itself. That's what a shepherd does. That's what an anakara does. The 23rd Psalm. 23rd Psalm teaches us that in that experience of God, though we know the valley of the shadow of death is always looming around us, we wish it would be taken away from us. We'd like to read the 23rd Psalm and hear the words saying that God somehow takes us up out of the valley or removes the valley from us. It doesn't say that. It says, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Because you, O God, are my shepherd. And in my experience of you, knowing that you go before me and behind me and within me and outside of me, even when things are not okay, things somehow are okay. I'm okay with the fact that things aren't. We can experience great peace and great joy in the midst of whatever life throws at us. This is what it is to experience God, and sometimes we need a shepherd to guide us to that experience. Well, how are you going to know when it's real? You'll know. Because the God in him or her will speak to God in you. Do we not all have the image of God within us? Do we not all contain the Spirit of God? In that, not here, not because, oh, that makes sense. Oh, that's logical. Not because it adheres to the formulas that we've taught ourselves over the years, but because something inside will stir, something will awaken. Because it was the very same Spirit of God that Jesus had. Because Jesus was the embodied wisdom of God itself. We too will experience the same thing that Jesus' disciples and followers experienced back then. And we too, through them, will know the Good Shepherd. Because just like the people who heard Jesus speak and saw Jesus do the wonderful and miraculous and amazing things that he did, he's got no demon. Because how can somebody who has a demon, somebody who is misleading people, somebody who is intentionally guiding people in the wrong direction for their own gain, how can somebody like that open the eyes of the blind? And when our eyes, not here, but here, are opened and made aware to the presence of God within, and when we experience that God in our lives, we will know that our eyes have been opened by none other